June 17, 1930. Tariff consequences. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act stands as one of the most controversial legislative actions in United States economic history. Sponsored by Senator Reed Smoot of Utah and Representative Willis C. Hawley of Oregon, the act aimed to protect American farmers and manufacturers from foreign competition during a period of intensifying economic decline. Its passage marked a turning point in both domestic policy and international trade relations, with long-lasting effects on the global economy. The legislation raised duties on more than 20,000 imported goods to record levels. The average tariff rate on dutiable imports rose from approximately 38% to nearly 60%. Although designed to shield domestic industries from the impacts of the Great Depression, the act provoked immediate and widespread retaliation from U.S. trading partners. Nations including Canada, France, Italy, and Germany responded by imposing their own tariffs on American goods, leading to a dramatic decline in global trade. President Herbert Hoover signed the Smoot-Hawley Act despite widespread opposition from economists, business leaders, and foreign governments. Over 1,000 economists had signed a petition urging him to veto the bill, warning that higher tariffs would worsen the economic crisis. Major financial institutions and export-oriented businesses also criticized the legislation, citing the risk of trade retaliation and a reduction in international markets for American products. Despite these warnings, Hoover, under pressure from protectionist forces in Congress and agricultural lobbies, approved the measure. Following its implementation, the United States witnessed a sharp decline in both exports and imports. Between 1929 and 1933, U.S. exports fell by over 60%, while imports dropped by more than 66%. Global trade contracted severely as other countries imposed counter-tariffs. This wave of protectionism contributed to the deepening of the Great Depression worldwide. While it is not solely responsible for the Depression's severity or duration, the Smoot-Hawley tariff is widely recognized as an exacerbating factor that reduced economic output and increased global economic tensions. The act had political consequences as well. It damaged the reputation of the Hoover administration and contributed to his defeat in the 1932 presidential election. Franklin D. Roosevelt campaigned in part on a platform that criticized protectionist policies. Once in office, Roosevelt shifted trade policy toward liberalization, leading to the Reciprocal Trade Agreements Act of 1934. This new law gave the president authority to negotiate bilateral tariff reductions, marking a reversal of the protectionist stance represented by Smoot-Hawley. Internationally, the act undermined efforts at economic cooperation during a time when global coordination was critically needed. It encouraged economic nationalism and fueled distrust between nations struggling with unemployment and bank failures. For example, Canada, which had been the United States' largest trading partner, was particularly affected, with Canadian exports to the U.S. dropping substantially. The tariff accelerated the fragmentation of the global economy into competing trade blocs, a trend that some scholars argue helped contribute to the rise of extremist political movements in Europe. The legacy of the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act continues to influence trade policy debates. Economists and policymakers often cite it as a cautionary example of the dangers of protectionism during economic downturns. The consensus among economic historians is that the act failed to achieve its intended goals, and instead intensified the very problems it sought to resolve. It remains a central case study in discussions on the interrelationship between trade policy and macroeconomic stability. Today, the Smoot-Hawley Act is remembered not for its initial promise of economic relief, but for its role in deepening a global economic crisis. It serves as a reminder of how domestic policy, when disconnected from international realities, can trigger far-reaching and unintended consequences. For enthusiasts of historical ephemera, visit history-collectors.com to find collectibles that might complement your collection. You can own a piece of history.